I know self-publishing's not for everyone. Nothing is. But if you've considered self-publishing for even a minute, listen up, because I'm betting I know what's holding you back from exploring it further or getting started. Number one, you think the self-publishing process is a lot harder than it actually is. And number two, you're understandably afraid of doing it, air quote, wrong. So I've created a new free resource for you. It's called the Self-Publishing Starter Kit, and you can get instant access to it by clicking the link in the show notes or visiting publishaprofitablebook.com/self-publishing 101. In this free training, you'll discover the exact 4 steps to focus on and mistakes to avoid so you can publish an incredible book that's indistinguishable in quality from a New York Times bestseller without overthinking, overguessing, or overspending in areas that won't make a difference. Again, visit publishaprofitablebook.com/self-publishing 101 to get instant access. Welcome to the Write the Damn Book Already podcast. My name is Elizabeth Lyons. I'm a 6-time author and book editor, and I help people write and publish powerful, thought-provoking, wildly entertaining books without any more overthinking, second-guessing, or overwhelm than absolutely necessary. Because let's face it, some overthinking, second-guessing, and overwhelm is going to come with the territory if you're anything like me. I believe that story and shared perspective are 2 of the most potent ways we connect with one another, and that your story, perspective, and insights are destined to become someone else's favorite resource or pastime. For more book writing and publishing tips and solutions, and plenty of free and low-cost resources, visit publishaprofitablebook.com. And for recommendations of fabulous books you've possibly never heard of, book writing inspiration, and the occasional meme so relatable you'll wonder if it was created with you in mind, follow me on Instagram at Elizabeth Lyons Author. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Write the Damn Book Already, which I am telling myself with frequency right now, but we'll get to that. It's another solo episode this week, but I'm super excited because next week I will be interviewing Ava Delara, who is the author of Exposure, which is a novel coming out from Zibby Books in September of 2024. It's already been blurbed by Daisy Alpert Florin, whom I love. And suffice it to say, the back cover copy has me hooked. This will be my weekend read. And today is Tuesday. Yesterday was the Mondayest Monday ever. And I woke up this morning and wished it was Friday just so I could dive into this book, but it's not. 4 more days, people. 4 more days. A new thing I'm starting is I'm going to feature a book every week. This week, the book rec of the week is, and can someone, by the way, come up with a cleverer, that's not a word, I know, but a more clever tagline for my book of the week instead of book rec of the week, because, is a great one that I firmly believe every person, maybe not every person, maybe that's not fair to say, because they say if your book, and I say if your book is for everyone, it's for no one. I just think the vast majority of us can benefit from this book. And that book is Just Do Nothing, A Paradoxical Guide to Getting Out of Your Way by Joanna Hardis. Let me just tell you, yes, I worked on this book with Joanna, and the thing that I think is so brilliant, well, beyond just the fact that Joanna's brilliant about this book, is it's about getting out of your way. And as Joanna and I have talked about on this podcast, when Joanna was writing the book, I swear to God, she could not get out of her own way. And she would echo that. She has echoed that, like publicly on this podcast. I kind of crowned her the I have nothing else to say queen, because when we started, she had written maybe 8,000 or 9,000 words, and she kept saying, Elizabeth, I've got nothing left to say. And so I'd ask her a few questions and she'd write in response to that. And now we'd be at 13,000 words and she'd say, okay, that's it. That's it. I've got nothing left. And we managed to get her to somewhere between 35 and 40,000 words, I believe. At any rate, it's a completely digestible book. This is not a tome that feels overwhelming And frankly, with the title of Just Do Nothing, I think it would be strange if the book were 552,000 pages long. But the book is so fantastic for anyone who is uncomfortable with the idea of being uncomfortable. And so, like, hand raised, hello. I learned so much from Joanna, who is a licensed therapist. While we were working on this book together, there is a principle within the book that I'm not going to give away here that changed. And I have been seeing therapists and reading self-help books since I was 8. And this particular approach to getting more comfortable with discomfort changed everything for me. And I tell her this with frequency, and she often just seems so surprised. Like, I can't believe that little thing changed so much. But that's the beauty of books and of putting your own approach and insights out there. It's the littlest thing that can make the absolute biggest difference. So if you are someone who, number one, wants permission to just do nothing, again, all my hands are raised. And also, if you are someone who would like to get more comfortable with the idea of being uncomfortable and having that be sustainable for more than 24 minutes or 48 hours, grab a copy of this book. I will put a link down in the show notes. It's available everywhere books are sold. Again, I just cannot recommend it highly enough. And I'm going to also put her Instagram down in the show notes, because she has fantastic content on her Instagram that is supremely helpful for anyone who is an overthinker, a worrier, an over-worrier. I mean, I guess there's degrees to that, and I'm definitely at the far end of the spectrum. So grab a copy. Speaking of simple advice, or maybe advice, it sounds so simple that you think that's too good to be true, but it isn't. That's what today's episode is all about. The best writing advice I've heard recently from other authors that has helped me move forward with the book I'm currently writing, and absolutely am uncomfortable being uncomfortable. I am overthinking it. I am greatly worrying about it, and it's preventing me from writing it. Just full honesty. So I'm going to share that with you in the hopes that one or both of these two pieces of advice might help move you forward or compel you when you're having a stuck moment. I have both of these pieces of advice on Post-it notes right by my laptop, so that when I start feeling those feelings of, like, that's the feeling I feel, it sounds just like that, I can reference these. The first is from my friend Jessica Fine, whose amazing book, and I've just started it. It's a memoir, breathtaking, a memoir of family, dreams, and broken genes. And I'm going to link to that below too. It just came out this month. Jessica is absolutely I just love her. She is a magnificent human being. When I think of lovely and grace, just someone who's full of grace, Jessica's face pops into my mind immediately. When I interviewed Jessica on this podcast, I'll link to that in the show notes too, because it was such a great interview. And it was light years before the book came out. At least it felt like light years. I think it was 2022 when we did the interview. And I remember her telling me, the book doesn't come out until 2024. And I thought, that is the most unkind thing you could possibly say to me or the world today. I thought it would never, ever get here. And here we are, and it's out for the whole world to devour and be touched by. And the book is heavy. It shares the story of Jessica's daughter, Dahlia, who passed away from a horrific disease. And when I was asking Jessica, how did you summon the courage, the will to sit down and write about some of those, the hardest days and the hardest feelings? Her answer was swift, but it just sent me to my knees almost. She just said, quickly and poorly. And she had no idea, neither did I at the time, but how impactful those 3 words would be on the authors with whom I work, quickly and poorly. I have so many authors who have that now on a Post-it note stuck to the top of their laptop to remind themselves that no matter what they're writing, no matter what genre, that first draft comes out quickly and poorly. And if we can put our perfectionist tendencies to the side, and if we can put our questions of what are people going to think? Is this the right way to say this? Is this the right place to say this? Should I say this earlier in the book? Should I say it later? Should I say it not at all? All the shoulding on ourselves that we do while we're writing books if we can just come back to quickly and poorly, the amount of weight that takes off of the vast majority of us, the vast majority of the time. Again, super simple saying, but the impact is really profound. So that's the first one that I'm going to give you, quickly and poorly. The second one is, I'm sure, no surprise, from my good friend Neely Tubati-Alexander, whose second book, In a Not So Perfect World, has just come out. I'll link all of her stuff below. I've interviewed her twice now on the podcast. And she actually delivered this to me yesterday. So I was speaking with her. One of the things I love about Neely, and also about talking with other authors who have books out, who have finished their books, they've made it to market, they're selling, they're still marketing them, is the honesty they have about the fact that even once a book goes to edit, even with a traditional publisher, because Neely's published through Harper Perennial, which is an imprint of HarperCollins, there are sometimes redos that are necessary. And I remember talking to Emma Gray about this as well. Sometimes there's this thought that once you turn in the manuscript to your editor, even if you're traditionally published, it's kind of hands off and they fix everything that needs to be fixed and then it goes out into the world and now it's perfect. It's like when you're writing, sometimes people can think, well, if I can't get this quite right, that's okay. My editor will get it quite right. Usually no. Usually, again, even with traditional houses, they'll say, this isn't quite right. Let's talk it through. But the onus will be on the author to ultimately fix it, to rework it, to reorder it, to add a chapter here or there, and in some cases even to change the entire perspective or outcome of the book. I remember years and years and years ago, I knew about firsthand an author whom my family was close to, who had written an entire book, a novel in the third person. And once it got to her editor at a major publishing house, she was told essentially to put it into the first person, or it might be that it was written in the first and she was told to put it into the third. But that is a huge change. And so authors should be prepared to have that be part of the process. And I've talked at length about the fact that the editing is really kind of part 2 and the marketing and the promotion is part 3. So to think that we're 25 miles through the marathon when we turn in the manuscript is setting our expectations in a not so great way, because we're really only 8 or 9 miles through. Well, wait, let me do the math. It's 26. Yeah, math's not my thing, but we're 8 or 9 miles through. We're certainly not 25 when we turn in the manuscript. So I was talking to Neely yesterday and she recognized something that she needed to do with something she's working on. And the quickness with which she turned around this thing, I mean, it was an hour and a half at max before she had sent me the new thing that she had kind of written quickly and poorly, not poorly, but she had written it quickly. And she just said, okay, here it is. Like, this is it. I just kind of threw it out on the page. I'm just trying to get my arms around it. Like, this isn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but am I heading in the right direction? And my God, was she heading in the right direction? But the thing I couldn't believe was how fast she just whipped that thing out, because I have been thinking about Neely's latest feedback on my chapter 1 for probably 14 weeks without taking action. What she said to me is what is compelling me to take action today. Because what I said, and I quote, is, you inspire me to just write the damn shit and hone it later. And her response was, and this is the 7-word mantra that hopefully will work for some, if not all of you, just get through the story for yourself. And the irony in that is I'm always telling my authors some version of that. We've heard it many times. The first draft is just for you. The first draft is you telling yourself the story. The first draft is you reminding yourself of what you want to say. I've said it all the time, but for some reason, I forget it when it comes to my own work. And also for some reason, that wasn't fully landing. But for Neely to say, just get through the story for yourself, it reminded me a little bit of the way that we sometimes do things wholly in private, because we just want it to be for us. So we'll hear about people who have a baby and they don't share any information for 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. I have an old friend who recently I knew had a baby, and I was just waiting. I was like, I know this baby's here. Why has this not been posted on social media? I need to see documentation of this joyful event. And it was like 2 weeks before anything at all was posted on social media. And I think there's such a loveliness to that because sometimes, and that's not to say, let me be clear, that there's anything wrong with posting, while the baby is coming out of you. Like some people choose to do that too. I'm just likening it to the fact that sometimes we like to keep something for ourselves before we put it out there and open up the floodgates for people to say, you named her what? And when we can think of our books in this way, I think it can be incredibly helpful from the perspective of just saying, I'm just telling myself this story. I'm getting through this story for myself. And then we can go back and figure out, okay, this doesn't make sense, and this person isn't really very likable, and this person's too likable, and we need more layers here, and more layers, and more layers, and more layers, because we've also talked about that ad nauseum, that for most people, it's a layering process. And we start with something very basic. And even Neely has said that her first outline, her first draft is really just an incredibly detailed outline. It's like a 30,000 word outline. But from there, you can add a sentence, you can add a paragraph, you can add a whole chapter, and it doesn't feel for most people quite as daunting as, okay, I'm Elizabeth. I'm 2 chapters in. I haven't figured out what's going to happen in chapter 8, so I think I'll just sit here and stare at the wall. But we write our way to it and we write our way through it. And so I hope those 2 simple lines of encouragement serve as exactly that for somebody who perhaps needs, like myself, a different way of saying the same thing, but saying it differently in a way that really resonates and that you can post up on your wall or on your laptop and refer to on your phone when you're having those moments of, what the hell? Like, I don't know. I don't even know what to do. So again, quickly and poorly, and just get through the story for yourself. And man, if that isn't applicable when it comes to memoir. And then from there, we take it and we start assessing, okay, what for this works for the reader, and on and on. That's a totally separate episode. So I hope that was helpful. Stay tuned next week for my interview with Ava Delara and my next book recommendation. And again, if you have an idea on what I could call this thing, send it my way. I have a lot of fun coming up with book titles, but sometimes I don't do I overthink this whole other thing, but I need something catchy and fun. All right, I'll talk to you guys again next week. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, this is your friendly reminder to follow or subscribe, leave a quick review, and share it with someone you know has a great story or message, but isn't sure what to do next. Also, remember to check out publishaprofitablebook.com for book writing resources and tips, and to see all the ways we can work together to get your book out into the world. Again, thanks so much for listening, and I'll talk with you again soon.